So we're getting into the fall. The leaves are starting to turn, and you've had your home on the market for a while, and it's not selling. Welcome to real estate this year, 2025. We're just getting into the October season, and we're starting to see the market slow down even more. It's been a slow year, and this is what I've heard from a lot of people. In fact, I've had several clients that have essentially put their home on the market. And here's the challenging thing for most of these folks. Almost every one of them bought their house a couple years ago, and after fees and everything, they need to sell their house for a certain amount just so that they can break even. You know, not everybody has tens of thousands of dollars to put forth to a home that they need to sell. And for one reason or another, job in a different area, or need to move for personal reasons or whatever, you bought the home a couple years ago, you don't have a ton of equity, and the home hasn't sold. We've done tons of videos about why the home's not selling. However, an option that some people have chose to do is to rent it out. Now, when it comes to renting out a house, there's a couple things that you need to think about. One, are you going to attempt to sell it next year? Because if you are, it's crucial that you have conversations around the tenants when they're moving in with what your time frame is. So a few of them that I've talked to have all had the same thing. Okay, well, we want to put the home back on the market depending on how the market looks next year, probably around May or June. And so not everybody wants to rent a house for 6 months. But if it's October now and you rent it out for a year, guess what? It's going to be October when your tenant moves out. Well, Brian, can't you sell the house with a tenant in it? And yes, you can. However, there's some challenges around that. So the big thing is making sure that you're upfront and clear with your clients. Okay, so with tenants, it's very hard to sell a house with a tenant in it. Okay, tenants don't always allow you to come in even though you give a 24-hour notice. B, now you're relying on them to clean the house like you would if it were your house. And C, sometimes tenants will say things that maybe you don't want them to say. Maybe they're disgruntled because they think that you're going to sell the house out from under them, or maybe you didn't fix a toilet in the timely manner that they thought you should fix it, and so when they stop by, they're like, oh well, this dang toilet's broken and the roof leaks, and they can say a lot of things. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's what the house condition is. However, it is something that can happen. I've seen it happen. I remember years ago walking through a house, and the tenant was home, had 3 kids, I think, and stayed there while we were doing the showing. The house was an absolute wreck, and literally the tenant walked through and pointed out everything that was wrong with the house. Whether or not it actually was wrong or not, I have no idea, but they definitely were talking about that. So, you definitely should think about that. And the other thing is too, especially if you've got something like a single family residence, not everybody wants to buy the house and honor the lease that's in existence. And so can you break that lease? There's a lot that gets very convoluted. And so what we've been doing is we've been advertising the home as essentially a 6-month lease, a 6-month rental, and being very upfront with people. And the other thing is people are savvy, right? So they're like, hey, we just saw this house was for sale and now it's for rent, right? Are you guys going to sell it from under us? So a lot of the things that we're doing, we're going, hey, we'll rent it to you for 6 months. There's a possibility that we're going to sell this next year, depending on market conditions. So we may put it back on the market, But at the end of the 6 months, there's a month to month. If we decide to put it back on the market, then we're going to go ahead and give you the 30-day notice, and you can move on. So there's people that are moving into the area. In fact, I just had a client, her mom moved into the area, and the mom really didn't want to buy a house from another state. So she's going to move here, and she's been actively looking, right? And in the next 6 months, she's probably going to choose to decide to purchase a house. Well, the other thing is too, with the fall colors, you know, if you put something under contract in the next 3 weeks or so, you might be moving in the snow because it takes a 30-day escrow if you're doing funding and everything else like that. And not everybody wants to do that. So sometimes people that are moving in from out of state, you know, to be closer to grandkids or to have a new job or to be closer maybe to a hospital, but they don't really know the area, you know. So they want to move into the area and take a look around. And that 6 month rental might be appealing to them. A lot of people don't want to move every 6 months, let's face it. So it does create a smaller rental pool. But this does a couple things. One, it infuses a little bit of cash into your situation, especially if you're making payments, and that's really tough if you've already moved out of state and you're making payments on that house and this house. You can now at least, you know, hold back the bleeding a little bit. And it also allows you to kind of reassess the situation coming into next year and what the market's going to do. Now, if mortgage rates dive and they take a 1% decrease, let's say, which I don't think that they will. But if they do that, then you're definitely putting the house back on the market next year. Let's say the mortgage rates pop up 1%, which I don't think they're going to do that either. Then you may choose to go back to that tenant and go, hey, you want to stay in here a little bit longer? And there's always the tenants that are looking because they're having their house built and it's taking a little bit longer than they thought. Maybe they had a rental that the lease is up and they need to get into it. So that's one of the strategies that some sellers are looking at right now. If you do have some questions about renting out your house, don't be afraid to reach out. I run a very boutique property management. Real estate is my key forte, but it's been something that has been popping up. Quite a few people have been doing it. And so it is an option that you have. It may not be your favorite option, because the other thing to think about is, what are the tenants going to do to the house? And we have, in fact, I might even do a tips video about renting out a house and a few things that we've found along the way to help you out with renting out a house. Stay tuned for more strategies and tips. BK knows the way.